Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is going to be a meta update, and I know what you're thinking. Patch win? Gaben, please? Valve time this year? Coming? But what today's video is going to be about with this current meta is what I feel like you guys are getting wrong or missing in the meta, something that I feel like hasn't maybe bled down to the games outside of Immortal just yet. Things that I've realized in Immortal, and even though this meta's been around for quite some time, I feel like it's evolved a lot in the last month or so in a way that I needed to adjust for. Otherwise, I was losing my games. And I think there's just kind of a formula right now that teams have landed on, and I want to talk to you guys about that formula. So without further ado, I'm going to show you guys my hero grid and get right into how I view each role being played in the current meta. So guys, I know there's a lot of noise on your screen, but I'm going to start with position 5, then go to 4, 3, 2, 1, counter our way up to what I feel about each role. So the meta right now for 5 is one of two things, both of which secure the lane for the carry. That's like the main emphasis. One is like melee lane dominators, Tusk, which supplies a lot of aggression, perhaps Clockwork, and even heroes like Undying and Treant Protector are creeping back up into the meta because they're so good at securing lane for the carry. And we'll get back to how that works with the carries that are currently good right now and why these heroes are so sought after. But the other type of lane dominator is these backline damage dealing supports. I have Lion here because I think he's fun, but I don't think he's particularly good. I think the best laning 5s right now are Jakiro, Warlock, and Snapfire, like just by a large margin. And so what these heroes do is they're able to clear waves from long range. So you're able to defend your tower. You're able to scale into the game with farm because there's so much farm on the map for everybody. And then you also have a lot of long range harass, or in the case of Warlock, sustain for your carry that really helps secure the lane. So not only do you secure the lane, but you also protect the tower when a lot of carries like to dip into the jungle around level 5 or 6. In the 4 position, we're basically dealing with the same thing, but you might occasionally go for like the Shadow Shaman or the Lion to get to some disable in your lineup if you're struggling with that. But it's backline damage dealing supports like Jakiro, Snapfire, both get played in 4 and 5, picked almost every game, and something like a Hoodwink. I have seen Slarks and Spear Breakers, like these obnoxious 4s that look to cut waves and play the map that way. I do believe that they're hard to pick with, and you might be griefing your offlaner if he doesn't really know how to make use of that chaotic type of lane. But if you have somebody you're working with, that can be really strong. But in solo queue, I'd advise a bit against it because your offlaner has to know how to adjust. And I want to use that as like a segue to get into the offlane. The biggest no-no about offlane right now that I've realized is when you pick a ranged slow guy. I think the only exception is Viper, kind of. I still don't even like it in the offlane very much, except for kind of preying on noobs that just don't know how your new Caustic Bath facet works. But the meta for offlane right now is melee, get the fuck in there bruisers, a lot of which either naturally take the tower like Marcy and DK, or they roam around the map very early like a Primal Beast, and they also just love to build Helm of the Dominator. I know we thought we were done with that meta when it got nerfed, but I think the strongest archetype of offlaner right now is actually Axe and Centaur, heroes that can effectively cut creep waves. But what people are doing on these heroes is they're rushing Helm of the Dominator and then using the Helm of the Dominator creep to drag the wave for them while they jungle. So it's like this ultra efficient, really hard guy to kill that is getting all of this farm because they just drag like a triple wave to themselves or a double wave that they just clear by virtue of spin and return. And they are really hard to kill. The minute you leave your lane, they take the tower because they have a creep. I feel like the offlane right now is all about this consistent, like whittled down type of pressure that you can apply on the tower. And that's best done with heroes that have a lot of kill threat on you, like Slardar, Primal Beast, Marcy. Marcy also goes for Helm of the Dominator, of course. And a hero like DK that applies relentless pressure on your tower, most often going for the corrosive facet when he's played in the offlane. And then these lane cutters like Centaur and Axe. I think this is by far the best archetype of offlaners right now. I have a few other in here that you can definitely try to play. I like Doom against specific like healing lineups. Pudge is more of a for fun pick. Legion's like a shitty Axe, then you don't go Helm of the Dominator. I also really like Tidehunter as well as Mars just for the team fight, but these heroes are more situational where your team is lacking team fight, and I feel like I need to pick it in order to counter the team fight of the opponent. Like Mars is good against like ranged damage dealer team fighters on the opponent team, and Tide's really good when you need like a frontliner to soak up the initiation. So when I talk about these offlane heroes, when you're these melee guys that just love to go in and you're kind of playing more for farm, you need damage coming out of your supports. And that's why it's kind of awkward when you pick like Slark or Spearbreaker type supports, because that means you're probably not going to play with your offlaner very much, and you need to like account for that. And if you're an offlaner and you have those type of supports, you can just communicate that I'm going to be playing more for farm. You can look to play around mid or rotate, all that kind of stuff. But your job is to get other lanes. I feel like the offlane is either shoving the tower and pressuring it or just purely playing for farm. There's very little like invading or like ganking of the carry unless it's in order to like get the tower, and by virtue of the offlaner continuously pressuring and the carry getting dove. That's like how most of the ganks I feel like are happening right now. So that's why I think having damage on supports is so essential. And I also love having Disruptor as a 5, because since your offlaner's playing more farm heavy for the first like 15 minutes, having a 5 position hero that offers a lot of catch with his glimpse is really nice for that. Moving to the mid lane, once again, there's kind of two archetypes. There's these melee bruisers that are popping up. Heroes like DK, heroes like Slardar and Primal are being seen a lot in the mid lane. And then there's always the spirits popping their head as well, but I don't see them as often. But what I do see against these melee guys is these ranged lane dominators like Quap, Leshrac, Sniper, Huskar, Viper, and then of course you have your for fun Pudge pick just in case you want to make sure you donate MMR 60% of the time. But I really like having this concept of the mid lane is about farming for one big item. The only real hero that rotates right now feels like Quap. Even a hero like Primal can rotate with a rune, but DK looks to pressure the tower, Sniper pressures the tower, Huskar pressures the tower, Slardar farms his Blink, Primal farms his Blink, Leshrac even farms a Blink really fast. That's like the meta for Leshrac right now is usually Mana Boots Blink or Mana Boots Kaya into Blink. All these heroes become active with like one medium tier item, and that's a lot of what the meta is right now. And what's kind of happening is, since so many of the fights are coming to mid, people might end up going, you know, more laning items on the mid lane, like full wand, raindrops, like null talismans and stuff, wraith bands if it's sniper. Because of the nature of what's happening in the off lane, people are gravitating much more towards the mid lane. So I know a lot of this may not apply to your games and exactly what you're seeing, but this is 100% what is optimal right now. So it's just good to know what is considered optimal and figuring out how you guys can fit into this whole dynamic of damage dealing catch supports, farming heavily in the off lane, a lot of action around the mid lane, and then mid lane also wanting to go for like one big item before they rotate around the map, except for when they get runes. So with all of that in mind, since offlaners are playing very farm heavy, but also tower pressure heavy, I've noticed that heroes that are easily gankable and heroes that don't defend their tower are much more situational unless you have a support that does so. So when I'm looking to pick these Treads Battle Fury builders, I don't really want to do that if I don't have a support, something like a Jakiro, like a Warlock, like a Crystal Maiden, something that's going to defend the tower for me. But on the other hand, I think the broken heroes are heroes like Gyrocopter and DK that are very durable and push out the wave with their levels. DK gets level 6 and shoves out the wave with Brief Fire plus ult. Gyro just flacks the wave down. And these heroes also have a lot of brawl potential in the early to mid game. So they're kind of making up for what's like happening in the offlane. Like offlanes being more farm heavy, these heroes are able to shove the lane out, relieve the pressure, but then also they have a way to accelerate their farm in the jungle. So I also saw that happening a lot with TB. Same idea, like use Metamorph to push out the wave or just shove it really fast with your illusions and leave. You know, that's also why Nature's Prophet's still getting picked, because he's a hero that can start jungling and then his team defends the tower and he makes moves towards mid, kind of like all consolidating in the mid lane. I would like to make a public service announcement about the carry role though. I have coached 3 people on Juggernaut recently. I'm literally going to pull this up. And all 3 of them went for Bladestorm Facet. I just need you guys to trust me right here. The Blade Form Facet is just strictly better in every way. At no stage of the game are you using Blade Fury for damage. It's almost purely a survivability tool. Maybe in the early game you're utilizing it to like help get a lane kill, but the Blade Form later in the game, when you have Swift Blink, is an extra 26 agility when you're Blink Omni slashing somebody. In the laning phase, it often offers you at least 1 or 2 agility and like 10 move speed. And it's also sometimes offering you 6 or 7 agility, which is absolutely insane for a facet at all stages of the game because it gives you more damage during your Omni/later, and it also helps your laning stage be much stronger. So please, public service announcement, stop taking Bladestorm facet on Jug. You also significantly farm slower because you're losing like 5 to 10 movement speed, sometimes more, going from camp to camp, and you hardly ever actually using Blade Fury to farm camps. And when you are, you don't need the Bladestorm in order to use it efficiently. It just does plenty of damage anyways. So going back to the meta heroes that we were discussing, I do have Axe here just as a way to remind me before I pick Troll that I don't want to pick Troll if there's Axe. I do like to do that in my hero grid. Like, I'll put Silencer next to Dawnbreaker if I'm looking to pick her. I'll put, like, AA next to Huskar if he's meta, but I never see AA. But these are things I like to do with my hero grid, so something really important to keep in mind. So the main carries I want you guys to look at are these ones because they are Treads Battle Fury builders. People are even starting to build Battle Fury on Void. And these heroes are really nice for just screwing off into the jungle and letting your support take the lane. And then you have heroes like Gyro DK that are very self-sufficient. Weaver also, that can go push the wave and like farm the 2 camps on the side. And that's really the meta for carry right now. It's really evolved into, I think the absolute best heroes are Gyrocopter and DK. What I love about DK is that you take the corrosive facet by default, but if you're against PL or Terrorblade, you take the red facet and you go Mjolnir. And if you're against Morphling specifically, in my opinion, this is the only matchup. If you're against Morphling specifically, you go for the Frost Dragon and you also go Mjolnir. So basically, this hero has no hard counters. That's been my realization. The Corrosive Dragon, your default, is often to go Mask of Madness into Armlet, into like Blink BKB Daedalus in any given order. Sometimes Hurricane Pike BKB Daedalus. But yeah, the hero is absolutely busted. If you haven't used him already, like if you're looking to understand what's really good in the meta right now, DK is just so strong. You are popping your ultimate off cooldown in order to farm, and then you have to be a little bit more selective with it later on in the game. And that's really his only downside, is that he is like a transformation-based carry, but he's just like 10 times better than Sven. Like similar ideas, a blink stunning carry that offers a lot of damage during his ultimate, and he's just like 100 times better at laning than Sven. So that's what DK offers. And Gyrocopter, people have the Axe build that they're still going, but what I think makes Gyrocopter so strong is that people are just going for the Afterburner facet, and they're going like Treads, Falcon Blade, Dragonlance, Manta, and they're just like running around farming really fast with Flak and also participating in fights and just running people down. And you're actually just like really hard to kill, and you do a lot of damage. You can take objectives and participate at all stages of the game. And then you end up going for like the Ags, Satanic Butterfly regardless at some point with like a Daedalus. But I really like these heroes because their laning stage is really reliable, and they also scale insanely. They do like, you know, struggle a bit against like Ursa Jug depending on the game. But I've found that if you're able to abuse these heroes, it takes maybe 1 or 2 games of getting used to it. In the laning phase, what ends up happening is like you keep your tower alive, and these heroes like Jug Ursa lose their tower, and the game feels really free for you. You get to farm so much more, and your team has so much more like mid-game presence, and it just seems super OP in theory. So I know I was a little bit all over the place with this meta update, but I want to give you guys kind of like a big fuller picture of what I believe each role's role is in this current patch before we get the update. I do believe it's coming most likely during Dream League, because that's what they've done for the last 2 years. Dream League is December 10th through December 21st, I believe. So I'm almost certainly expecting December 14th patch is what I'm guessing. So you've got about 2 weeks to utilize this video and its information, and it'll also be good practice for preparing you for next patch and whatever may be to come. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next meta update, hopefully on a new patch.